Get out of my way. 5 years later, CEO rejects ex and finds 2 girls with his eyes. Get ready. If you believe in second chances and the power of fierce motherhood, smash that like button and subscribe. You are about to witness a powerful story of betrayal and a difficult path to redemption. Let us know in the comments. Do you think this CEO deserves a second chance? Or what? The impactful hook and the secret twin. Lives Chapter 1. The impactful hook. Don't stand in my way. Elara James never imagined a single sentence could change the entire course of her life. Yet, as she stood in Darian Vance's private Manhattan office, surrounded by polished granite and glass walls that showcased the city he ruled, she felt the air around her turn cold, sharp, and ruthless. His presence once made her feel safe, adored, chosen. But now the man she loved looked at her as if she were an inconvenience blocking the path to his pristine future. He was the picture of success. Perfectly groomed dark hair, a costly custom-tailored suit, and brown eyes usually burning with ambition, but holding nothing today but irritation and impatience. She had rehearsed every possible way to tell him the truth growing inside her, a truth she had carried alone for weeks. 2 small, innocent heartbeats, full of possibility, pulsed beneath her own. She pressed her trembling fingers against her abdomen. She wanted to imagine his excitement, the shock followed by joy, the way he would smile and pull her into his arms. Instead, her fantasy shattered before she could open her mouth. Don't stand in my way. I'm marrying someone else. His voice was low, but vicious in its finality, a statement meant to pierce through any hope she had left. He didn't shout. He showed no anger. His indifference was worse than cruelty. Elara blinked, feeling her heart fracture. She stared at him, searching for even a glimpse of warmth, a sign that he still remembered their shared nights, their laughter, the way he once looked at her as if she were the only person who truly understood him. Instead, she watched him reach for his jacket with calm confidence, as if he hadn't just destroyed the life forming inside her. He didn't see her at all. She was invisible in the story he chose to live. The wound was so intense it stole her breath. Pride was the only shield she had left. Elara straightened her shoulders, wrapped her trembling arms tightly around herself, and walked towards the door. She refused to crumble until she was away from his gaze. She stopped for a fraction of a second, waiting, longing, praying for him to call her name. He didn't. She rushed out, one hand still protectively covering her womb. She whispered an apology to the little lives growing inside her, silently promising them that she would love them enough for all 3 and fight to give them a future, even if their father chose not to know them. Elara wiped her face roughly. She took a deep breath that tasted of pain and resolution. He had chosen his path. Now she would choose hers. She would not beg. She would not tell him she carried his children. She would not allow his coldness to define her. That night, she curled up alone, listening to the silent rhythm inside her. 2 small miracles needed her, and she would give them everything she had. Interactive question. Do you think Elara made the right choice by not telling Darian about the twins, or should she have risked his anger for the sake of the children knowing their father? What would be your first move if you were Elara? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. Chapter 2. 2 twin girls and a single anchor. The pregnancy became a daily test of how much a human heart can endure. Elara worked as many hours as her body allowed, hiding morning sickness and ignoring whispers from coworkers. Fear and solitude were briefly replaced by an overwhelming love that gave her the strength to move forward. Medical bills accumulated faster than she could pay them. She sacrificed meals to save money, choosing canned soup while ensuring adequate nutrition for her unborn children. She read every parenting book she could borrow, The day the doctor told her she was expecting identical twin girls, Elara wept the tears she had held back for months. The ultrasound showed two perfectly formed babies nestled together. She pressed the printout to her chest. She made a silent promise that her daughters would always feel wanted, always feel loved. When Sylvie and Serafina were born, the delivery room filled with simultaneous chaos and joy. Elara had no partner to hold her hand. Instead, she pushed through every contraction with the primal knowledge that she was fighting for the two lives entirely dependent on her strength. Then, the cries of two newborns filled the air, and everything else disappeared. The nurses handed her two squirming miracles, both with soft tufts of dark hair and big, curious brown eyes that blinked at her. Holding them for the first time was like coming home after being lost for too long. She named them Sylvie and Serafina, Sarah in the original story, choosing names that felt strong but sweet, matching the brave, bright futures she wanted for them. Motherhood was not easy. Sleep became a rare luxury. Nights blurred into an endless cycle of feedings and comfort. She often held one baby in one arm while prepping bottles with the other, singing lullabies through sheer exhaustion. Yet every small milestone, a first smile, a small giggle, was a reward far greater than rest. As the girls grew, their personalities blossomed. Sylvie was bold and energetic, always the first to crawl, the first to climb. Serafina was thoughtful and observant, studying everything with solemn curiosity before daring to move. Though identical, Elara could tell them apart instantly, not by look, but by the way their souls seemed to shine differently. Financial struggles never ceased. Elara counted every penny. Pride became her armor, but it was her daughter's well-being that gave her reason to keep fighting. She created a home for them, small, imperfect, but full of warmth. Sometimes, late at night, Elara allowed herself to think of Darian. She wondered if his life was still so perfectly aligned with his ambitions. The pain would return, sharp and relentless, but she refused to dwell on it. She had moved on. Sylvie and Serafina were 5 now, bright and effervescent, two perfect reflections of the man who had turned his back without hesitation. Elara had ensured they never lacked love. The girls thrived, their laughs loud, their spirits unbreakable. They did not know the story of their origins, and Elara hoped to delay that difficult truth as long as possible. Part 2. The inevitable collision. When after just 5 years and 2 gazes, Darian Vance had built a life that looked perfect from the outside, polished and gleaming. However, he quickly learned that a marriage built on convenience and status could never satisfy a heart desperate for something real. His marriage to Serafina in the original story, ended in divorce less than 2 years later. Darian excelled at the only thing left to him: work. He expanded his firm, reaped awards, and amassed admiration. But every day felt more like he was playing a character rather than living a life. He tried to bury Elara in the deepest corners of his mind, but memories of her genuine, free laughter, surfaced at the most inopportune times. As 5 years passed, something in him began to change. He found himself watching families in parks, feeling a sharp pang when he saw fathers lifting their children, laughing. The idea of family, once a threat, now felt like the only thing missing. His penthouse, once a symbol of victory, now felt like a prison. The silence within his walls grew louder each night, echoing everything he lost. One day, during a corporate charity event in a city park, fate decided to stop giving him time to think. While standing with business partners discussing development plans, the sound of unrestrained laughter drifted over from a nearby playground. He turned toward the noise and saw 2 small girls running across the grass. Something inside him stopped dead. He stared, unable to look away, because these two girls looked strikingly familiar. Their hair, a rich brown identical to his, bounced as they ran. And when one of them turned her head, the sun caught their eyes. Brown, deep, expressive, unmistakable. His heart lurched as the recognition hit with brutal force. He knew those eyes. He had seen them in the mirror his whole life. As his pulse thundered, he frantically searched for their mother, and then he saw her. Ilara, standing a few feet away, watching the girls with a smile that softened every part of her face. She looked stronger, more radiant than he remembered. Darian felt his entire world tilt. 5 years of denial and ambition collapsed beneath him in a single heartbeat. He understood exactly what he had done. He had walked away from the only future that truly mattered. He stood motionless, barely able to breathe, watching the two small girls who could only be his daughters. His heart hammered so loudly he wondered if anyone else could hear it. Every instinct screamed at him to go to them, to fall to his knees and beg forgiveness for not knowing, for not being there. Ilara noticed him after several seconds. Her smile slowly vanished, replaced by a wall of rigid caution. She called the girls gently. Both turned at her voice and ran to her, one arm around each daughter, protecting them from a brewing storm. Darian finally found the strength to move, his legs weak. He opened his mouth but didn't know where to start. "Ilara, they are," he finally managed to whisper, his voice broken and desperate. Her eyes flashed with pain and accusation. "Yes," she replied softly, but with a sharp edge that cut straight through his chest. "They are yours." He searched for words, any words. "Why didn't you tell me?" he pleaded. Ilara let out a trembling breath. "The day I tried to tell you, you made it clear that I didn't matter," she said with painful calm. "You walked away before I could say anything. I wasn't going to beg." Darian flinched as if struck. He remembered that day now with searing clarity. He had sentenced himself to this fate long before he understood the consequences. "I don't deserve a second chance," he admitted. "But I'm begging you. Let me try. Let me meet them. Let me make up for what I can." Ilara's expression reflected an emotional storm. "I need time," she said finally, her voice a fragile thread. "I need to think about what is best for them." Darian nodded, accepting even that small mercy as a lifeline. As he watched them walk away, his daughters looking back with curiosity over their shoulders, Darian felt a new, powerful determination ignite within him. He would not disappear again. He would fight. Interactive question. What do you think should be Darian's first concrete step to earn Ilara's trust? A grand financial gesture, or something small and constant? Comment below. Part 3. Earning Trust. One Day at a Time. Chapter 4. Earning Trust. One Day at a Time. Darian emerged from the park a different man. Everything he had spent years building suddenly felt meaningless compared to the 5 years of life he missed with his daughters. He sat in his office, grappling with one question. What kind of man had he been? He approached Ilara cautiously, respecting her distance, offering help without expecting gratitude. At first, Ilara refused everything. She didn't want the girls to attach to someone who might leave again. Darian, however, persisted, not with arrogance, but with a humility he had never before known. Slowly and cautiously, Ilara allowed small interactions in public places. The first meetings were awkward. Sylvie, the bold one, cautiously approached him first, dropping beside him when he pulled out a coloring book. Serafina, the thoughtful one, stayed closer to Ilara, observing. Darian didn't pressure them. He sat on the grass, patient and waiting. When he drew a clumsy cat, Sylvie laughed, the sound so pure it hit him like sunshine breaking through a storm. That simple shared giggle felt more victorious than signing any multi-million-dollar deal. Darian dedicated more time to his daughters, prioritizing them above everything else. He canceled non-essential business trips. He learned their favorite cartoons, the name of the stuffed animal Sylvie couldn't sleep without, and the exact way Serafina liked her hair brushed. The girls, despite their initial hesitation, began to trust him in precious increments. Their acceptance came through everyday moments, Sylvie grasping his hand without thought, Serafina climbing into his lap during a movie, both girls calling his name when something exciting happened. Elara watched every interaction. Seeing Darian love his daughters made her ache in ways she wasn't prepared for. She had spent years convincing herself that she was enough, but seeing the light in the girls' eyes when Darian arrived showed her how much they had missed. One rainy evening, after the girls begged Darian to stay longer, Elara admitted her fear. Fear that he would leave again. Fear that the girls would love him only to lose him. Fear that she, too, would love him again, and that the heartbreak would destroy her this time. Darian listened with his heart fully open. When she fell silent, he reached out and told her he would not leave. Not when things were hard. Not when people expected him to. Never again. He confessed he had never been truly strong before, because he ran from the only person who ever made him want to be better. Elara didn't instantly believe him, but she didn't reject him. She simply whispered that she needed time, just as he needed forgiveness. Darian said he would wait. If it took months, years, or the rest of his life, he would wait. Chapter 5. The Unbreakable Bond. The Storm and the Father. Darian quickly learned that raising two energetic 5-year-olds was both chaotic and miraculous. He had to learn patience, gentle guidance, and how to kneel to eye level. The first time the girls called him Dad, the words sounded tentative. Darian sat on his couch later, overwhelmed by a gratitude and guilt so tightly interwoven he couldn't separate them. One rainy night, everything changed. Elara had allowed Darian to take the girls to the playground alone for the first time. A sudden summer storm rolled in, bringing loud thunder that terrified Serafina. The girl bolted, running straight toward the darkened trees. Darian chased her with a fear that shattered him more violently than anything he had faced in the business world. He finally reached her behind a thick bush, sinking to his knees, his suit soaked. He wrapped her in his arms, whispering soft words and shielding her from every clap of thunder. He wasn't calm or serene. He was terrified, his heart hammering, afraid of losing her. When Serafina finally looked up, tear-stained, and wrapped her arms around his neck, Darian realized that trust wasn't earned through perfect actions, but by showing up during the messy, frightening moments. When Elara rushed over, finding Serafina curled against Darian's chest, while Sylvie clung to his arm, the vision of her daughters choosing him as their safety anchor shook her heart deeply. She saw how his hands still trembled long after the girls calmed down, how he looked at them as if they were the most fragile, precious treasures in the world. A part of her began to soften. Darian began helping with bedtime routines. Serafina started falling asleep curled up beside him, comforted by the steady rhythm of his breathing. Sylvie insisted he tuck her in last, claiming she needed the strongest hug before bed. Anya and Darian often sat together, talking softly about school plans and future birthdays. Darian often looked at Anya with a mix of admiration and remorse, seeing her not as the girl he walked away from, but as a woman who survived heartbreak and turned it into the warm environment where his daughters thrived. They were changing together, slowly, painfully, beautifully. Part 4, The Forever Proposal, and The Full Circle, Chapter 6, The Proposal for Forever. A New Beginning. Elara carried a fear she couldn't silence. What if he leaves again? Darian knew he was walking through a minefield of distrust. He sought therapy, determined to dismantle the emotional armor he wore for so long, discovering how deeply he had equated vulnerability with danger. Ilara started noticing subtle changes. He never missed a day with the girls. He was present at every parent-teacher meeting, every recital. He was there not just through celebrations, but through tantrums, scraped knees, and feverish nights. One night, Ilara joined him on the sofa. She confessed that every time she saw him caring for their daughters, something inside her changed. He listened, then told her he would not leave. Not when things were hard. Not when people expected him to. Never again. He confessed he had never been truly strong until now. Weeks later, they were washing dishes side by side in Ilara's kitchen. The simple domesticity wrapped around them like a warm blanket. Ilara finally dared to say that she didn't want to run anymore. She could see the man he was now. Darian planned his proposal not with extravagance, but with meaning. He asked Ilara to take the girls to the Central Park Conservatory Garden on a warm Saturday afternoon. A place of quiet beauty. The twins ran ahead, giggling. Darian guided Ilara to a wooden bench beneath a flowering arch. He confessed that walking away from her had been the biggest mistake he would ever make. He said meeting their daughters changed the entire structure of his soul, teaching him what love truly meant. Darian knelt before her, holding out a small velvet box. The ring was delicate, sparkling like captured sunlight. But it was his voice that held the true beauty of the moment. He asked her to marry him, promising to be the husband she could lean on, the father their daughters could always count on, and the partner whose loyalty would never fail again. Ilara's tears fell freely. She said yes, her voice trembling but sure. The twins screamed and rushed into their parents' arms, wrapping the four of them in a group hug that felt like a sealed promise, a bond that would never again be broken. Their journey had been painful, messy, and terrifying. But because they fought through every difficulty instead of surrendering, they emerged stronger. Their life was proof that love can survive mistakes, that forgiveness can grow where pain once reigned, and that second chances are worth risking everything when the heart finally chooses what truly matters. Meaningful ending. Love that is earned through humility, and time is stronger than love born of simple convenience. True strength is choosing to rebuild, one day at a time. Chapter 7. The Final Sacrifice. CTA. See the change. Darian Vance is about to prove his love is worth more than his fortune. Hit subscribe to witness his final sacrifice. Darian knew that a heartfelt proposal was not the end of his penance. It was just the beginning of his commitment. He had promised Ilara that he would never again choose ambition over family, and he understood that the only way to solidify this was to dismantle the very structure that had once defined him. He called a board meeting at Vance Enterprises not to announce a merger, but to announce a fundamental shift in philosophy. My focus is no longer maximum quarterly returns, Darian stated, his voice calm and firm as he addressed the stunned directors. It is on sustainable, ethical development that supports communities, not exploits them. He announced the sale of his controlling interest in two highly lucrative, but ethically questionable, subsidiaries. He divested entirely from projects that required relentless travel or excessive time away from New York. He didn't just step back. He re-architected his entire life's work to reflect his newfound priorities. His financial sacrifice was immense, triggering a minor tremor in the market. But when his personal net worth stabilized at a fraction of its former height, Darian felt a profound lightness. The golden handcuffs had finally been unlocked. He established the Vance Family Trust, dedicated to providing resources for single parents pursuing education, a tribute to Alara's fierce struggle. He placed Alara in charge of the foundation's creative direction. When Alara saw the legal documents, her eyes weren't filled with gratitude for the money. They were filled with respect for the radical sincerity of his commitment. He had proven that his love was not just words spoken under a flowering arch. It was a structure built on shared values. Interactive question. If Darian had only said, "I love you," and kept his CEO title without changing his company, would Alara have ever truly forgiven him? Comment your thoughts. Chapter 8. The Simple Ceremony. They chose to marry where their lives had first collided in pain, and then reunited in truth, the Central Park Conservatory Garden. The wedding was small, scheduled for a bright, quiet Sunday afternoon. Alara wore a simple, elegant gown that allowed her to move freely. Darian wore a suit that was perfectly tailored, but his focus was entirely on his family, not his appearance. The most important moment came just before the exchange of rings. Darian looked at Alara, his voice thick with emotion. "I stand here today," he vowed, "not as the man who was too blind to see you, but as the man who was saved by your strength. I promise to be the anchor you need, to stand by you in every storm, and to cherish the beautiful, difficult depth of our life together." Alara's voice, once fragile with tears in that office 5 years ago, was now steady and strong. "I promise to share my heart with you again, not because you earned it with grand gestures, but because you built trust with every small, persistent act of presence. Our future is not defined by your past mistake, but by our fierce, shared love for our daughters." When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Sylvie and Serafina, now 6 years old, stepped forward, not as flower girls, but as the witnesses of their parents' union. They presented the rings, their small hands steady. As Darian slipped the ring onto Alara's finger, the girls threw themselves into their legs. Darian and Alara knelt to meet them, and the four of them shared an embrace that was the true seal of their marriage. A family unit, finally, and completely whole. Chapter 9. The Legacy of Love. Darian and Alara moved out of the confining city apartment and into a bright, airy home near a top-rated school, with a large backyard that instantly became the twins' new playground. Darian didn't retire. He redefined his success. He spent his weekdays focused on the Vance Family Trust and consulting, allowing him to be home every evening for dinner and every weekend for building pillow forts. He never forgot the pain he caused. The memory of that moment in the office, the phrase, "Don't stand in my way," became his quiet, daily reminder. He made sure that his daughters knew they were never an inconvenience. Sylvie remained the explorer, often found high in the backyard tree, challenging her father to climb after her. Serafina remained the thoughtful one, demanding Darian sit quietly with her, to listen to the ocean hidden inside a seashell. Their life wasn't easy. It was full of the wonderful chaotic depth that Darian had once feared. But now, it was exactly where he belonged. The greatest triumph wasn't Darian's professional redemption. It was the simple fact that every night, when he and Alara tucked the girls into bed, the last thing they heard was the sound of unreserved, confident laughter. Their story became a quiet legacy in their community. Proof that the love you fight for is infinitely more valuable than the success you chase. Meaningful ending. True success is not measured by the heights you reach in your career, but by the depth of the love you build in your home. The only path worth taking is the one that leads you back to your family. Chapter 10. The Summer of Questions. Face the past. The twins are about to discover the painful truth about why their father wasn't there. Hit like if you believe Alara and Darian can handle this with honesty. 4 years after the wedding, the Vance family was a picture of stable, thriving love. The move to the larger home, Darian's dedicated work with the Vance Family Trust, and the consistent presence of both parents had created an environment of effortless joy. Sylvie and Serafina were now 10 years old, two bright, inseparable forces of nature. The challenge that summer was not from a boardroom, but from the natural curiosity of growing up. Darian's work with the trust was expanding, requiring him to travel for a week to Los Angeles to secure new partnerships. It was his longest trip since his re-architecture, and the girls, now old enough to feel his absence acutely, were unusually quiet. The questions began innocently. Serafina, the contemplative one, asked Alara one afternoon, "Mommy, if Dad is so busy saving the world now, was he always a superhero, or did he become one later?" Sylvie, the direct one, followed up days later. "Why did you and Dad get married when we were so old? All our friends' parents got married before they had babies." Alara and Darian had always agreed. They would tell the girls the truth before they heard it from someone else, but they would wait until they were mature enough to process it without resentment. That time was now. Chapter 11. The Moment of Truth. The conversation happened on a rainy Sunday evening. Darian was back from LA, and they were all sitting together on the large, comfortable sofa, wrapped in blankets. Alara started the conversation, her voice gentle but steady. "Remember when we talked about how families are sometimes messy and they take time to build?" Darian took over, his hands holding the twins' hands tightly. He looked directly into their identical brown eyes, refusing to flinch from the difficult honesty. "Sky and Serafina, your mother and I have a long, complicated love story. The truth is, when you were first growing inside Mommy, I was lost. I was focused only on success and power, and I made a huge mistake. I wasn't brave enough to commit to something real, and because of that, I wasn't there for the first 5 years of your lives." Sylvie's bottom lip trembled first. "You left Mommy?" Serafina, processing the emotional meaning, asked, "Did you leave because you didn't love us?" That question cut Darian deeper than any betrayal. Tears welled in his eyes, but he forced himself to speak the truth plainly. "No, I didn't leave because I didn't love you. I left because I didn't know you existed. I made my mistake before I knew about you. And when I finally saw you, I knew I had to spend the rest of my life proving I was worthy of the chance to be your father." Alara added gently, "Your father gave up everything, all his old ambitions and money, to earn his way back to us. He wasn't a good man then, but he is the best father and husband now." The girls didn't yell. They didn't cry in anger. They cried because they understood that their family had been broken, and their strong mother had carried the pieces alone. The four of them held each other tightly, letting the tears and the years of unspoken truth dissolve in the embrace. CTA. Show support. This is the hardest conversation any parent can have. Send your love and support to the Vance family by sharing this story now. Chapter 12. A Legacy of Compassion. The truth didn't break them. It made them stronger. The girls, absorbing the story, didn't turn angry. Instead, they asked questions that showed the depth of their empathy. "Did that woman, the one you almost married, was she sad when you left her for us?" Serafina asked Darian, demonstrating a compassion Darian never possessed in his youth. Darian looked at Alara, grateful for the emotional intelligence she had instilled in them. "I hurt a lot of people by chasing the wrong things, sweetie. I hurt your mother, and yes, I hurt my friend. I learned that trying to find an easy path often makes life much harder for everyone around you." The conversation about the past became a living lesson in their home. A person is defined not by the mistakes they make, but by what they do to fix them. Sylvie, the practical one, found her own way to process it. She took Darian's hand the next morning. "Dad," she said seriously, "that man who left, he was dumb. But you are here now. Let's go build a fort, okay? That man couldn't build forts." Darian laughed, a full, relieved laugh. That man couldn't build anything that lasted, Sil. But this lasts. The whole experience brought Darian and Alara closer, solidifying their roles not just as partners, but as co-architects of their children's emotional well-being. They had faced the past together and emerged unified. Meaningful ending. The fiercest form of love is not protection from the truth, but the courage to tell it with compassion. A true legacy is not what you leave behind for your children, but what you build with them. Part 7. The True Measure of Change. Chapter 13. The Unexpected Client CTA. Witness. Compassion. After everything she did, Darian is about to meet the woman he left Alara for. Will he seek revenge or show compassion? Hit subscribe button to see the true measure of his change. 5 years after stepping down as CEO, Darian Vance had redefined his world. The Vance Family Trust was his legacy, focused on empowering single mothers through education and stable housing. He found a profound satisfaction in building up others, a sharp contrast to the solitary ambition that once defined him. His commitment to his family was unwavering. The girls, Sylvie and Serafina, were now thriving middle schoolers. One Tuesday morning, Darian was preparing for a meeting at the trust offices. His assistant placed a file on his desk with a note. Prospective applicant for the Professional Re-Entry Grant. Darian opened the file, and his breath hitched. The applicant's name was Chloe Matthews. Chloe was the friend for whom Darian had rejected Alara, declaring their relationship too difficult. After their short, superficial romance ended, Chloe had struggled. Without Darian's social circle and financial support, her career stalled. She had hit a rough patch and was now seeking the very kind of support Darian's trust was founded to provide. His first instinct, a cold, vestigial echo of his old self, was to deny the application out of hand. But that was the Darian of the past, the man who allowed bitterness and convenience to dictate his actions. He closed the file and called Alara. He told her everything: the application, the name, the past. Alara listened quietly. "What does the application say about her need, Darian?" she asked, ignoring the history. "It says she's genuinely rebuilding, facing financial hardship, and needs funds for specialized training to restart her career," he replied. "Her application is strong." "Then she needs the help the trust offers," Alara stated simply. "We built this to help people who are trying to restart their lives after a fall. You know better than anyone that sometimes a terrible mistake leads to the greatest need." Alara's compassion, built from her own pain, became Darian's final lesson. Chapter 14. Compassion over retribution. Darian conducted the interview himself. Chloe walked in, looking worn and anxious, her former polish replaced by a genuine fear of judgment. She didn't recognize Darian at first. His focus, his quiet strength, and the compassion in his eyes were features the old, self-absorbed Darian never possessed. "Ms. Matthews," Darian began, his voice calm and professional. "Your application is strong. I'm prepared to approve the full grant amount." Chloe looked stunned. "But I thought you'd want to talk about my past. I made some regrettable choices." Darian leaned forward, a ghost of his old ruthlessness replaced by deep understanding. "The trust is not interested in your past mistakes, Ms. Matthews. We are interested in your future potential. Everyone deserves the chance to start over." It wasn't until the very end, as Darian signed the final approval, that he looked up and met her eyes. "I wish you the best, Chloe. Work hard." Chloe paused, finally recognizing the eyes of the man who left her, the eyes of the man who she now knew had twin daughters. She stammered, "Darian, I'm so sorry." "Me too," he replied, his voice soft. "But we both found our path, Chloe. You have a chance now. Take it." It was the final, definitive proof of Darian's change. He had used his power not for revenge, but for redemption. Not just his own, but for someone else who had fallen. Chapter 15. The Final Piece. That evening, Darian returned home. The house was filled with the usual wonderful chaos. Sylvie was practicing her trumpet, and Serafina was reading aloud to their enormous, lazy cat. Darian found Alara in the kitchen, preparing dinner. He told her about the interview with Chloe. Alara didn't look up from chopping vegetables. "Did you feel anything?" "Only peace," Darian admitted. "I realized that the man who hurt her, and hurt you, is finally gone. He doesn't live here anymore." Alara finally looked up, her eyes shining with love and quiet victory. She walked over and gently touched his cheek. "Welcome home, Darian." They didn't need grand statements of love anymore. Their love was in the everyday. It was in the shared laughter over a burnt dinner roll, the synchronized timing of driving the girls to soccer practice, and the quiet comfort of knowing that, no matter how hard the world got, they would always choose to face it together. Their story was a testament to the fact that love that is built on truth and humility is far more valuable than any empire built on convenience and lies. The fierce love of a mother and the courageous commitment of a father had created a family that was finally and completely whole. Meaningful ending. Forgiveness is not the destination. It is the path that leads to true freedom. The greatest measure of a person is not how they handle success, but how they use their power to heal the mistakes of their past.